Welcome back to another episode of the Strive for 25 podcast. And today I've got a guest like no other that we've had before. This gentleman, Deven Woolwind, is 16 years old, COO of a real estate company, owns over 40 units, bestseller, has written 3 books, etc. So, Deven, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you very much for having me on.
So, real quick, just baseline for the audience. Who are you? What are you doing? And how the heck are you at this point owning 40 units?
So, as you mentioned before, my name is Deven Woolwind. I'm 16 years old. I have started buying real estate at 7 years old. I decided to write books because I wanted to help make the world a better place. Recently, what I've been working on is running a radio show with the rest of my family. And I guess a lot of people ask me how I do this or why I do this. I do it, one, to make the world a better place for the teaching people and helping people. I want to make more money so that I can have passive income, so I can have freedom, whether that be time freedom or location freedom. And I guess I want what a lot of people want, to be able to do what I want, when I want to do it, wherever I want to do it, with whomever I want to do it with.
So, there's a ton to dig into, but if you could just kind of give an outline of some of the things you have going on, so what's the name of the latest book that you've written and a little bit of a story of what kind of real estate you have, just baseline what's going on.
So my most recent book is called The Fall and Rise of Atlas Gold, and it was just released a couple weeks ago. As for the real estate, I own 46 units, and that's a combination of houses and multifamily. And I believe my biggest is 20% of a 60 unit.
Okay. So the book, can you give us a little bit of a brief description of what that's all about?
Sure. That latest book is actually the second book in the series for that series. And it's a fictional story for kids and teenagers. It's in the first book, kids are just doing what they love and it accidentally turns into a business. In the second book, that goes on and there's this whole mystery of a couple of things going wrong and how do we solve that. And the entire premise of the books is how kids can have fun while also learning about business, investing, all of that. I wanted to make it so that people around my age could learn about this and would want to learn about this, because as great as my first book was, it was meant for adults. It was great for adults to learn a little bit about business, or specifically real estate, but a kid's not going to go out and read that most likely. So I decided to make something that kids would read.
So in the example, not to give too much away from the book, but the example of the kids kind of falling into the business that they wrote, that was in the first book, you said?
Yes, that was mainly in the first book.
Okay. So just to take an example, like what type of example of the business was built in that storyline?
The main one was the main character, Atlas Gold. He loves coding and electronics and drones and all of that sort of thing. And he creates this cool little delivery drone and ends up essentially selling that idea to a big business out of, I believe, Cleveland. And he just ends up making money with that he can then put towards future projects or anything else. And part of that in the second book, he actually puts towards like improving the local area. He helps fix up the park. And then he also, in that second book, learns a bit about investing because he still has some money left over and he wants to figure out where else he can put that. So that's chapter 17. That's my favorite chapter. Talks a lot about that.
And so you mentioned the second book more geared towards the younger demographic. In terms of some of the reactions of peers or people in your more of your age range, what kind of feedback have you gotten so far?
A lot of people really enjoy The Garage. That's the second book that I published and the first one in that series. A lot of people really liked it. They really enjoyed reading it. The second book was kind of just released, so I don't have too much feedback from that yet. But some of the first things I've gotten, people seem to like it too. They enjoyed reading it. It's a fun story. And I think a couple of people might have even learned some things from one of the books, or I had a couple of people reading some of the things I was writing before it was published just to see, hey, how will people react to this?
So the second book, if you were to kind of outline, you know, one of the main messages that someone's going to get from it, why would it be important for someone that's a teenager to catch it and read it?
The main thing in the second book, I guess, would be think outside the box, see the big picture, or I guess are two big things in that. They're not super outlined in it. Like there's a lot of smaller lessons in there. But I guess if you want to look at the whole, if you want to look at the book as a whole, that would be, I guess, the whole book in a nutshell.
Yeah, you know, you look on paper, right? Real
Mhm.
estate, writing books, like that's not common for someone that's a teenager, right? But you're out here doing it, then also talking about it. You have your own radio show and spreading the word. And the goal is to influence, inspire, motivate, and show people that's possible. And there's an analogy that I've talked about in the past, you know, for my own sake, but also some people in my networks. Like, you know, Michael Jordan is just, you know, one of my favorite players. I watched him growing up, one of the greatest players of all time, arguably the GOAT. And I kind of went down this road of, you know, reading and listening to Tim Grover. And Tim Grover is Michael Jordan's trainer back in those days. And so he also trained Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest players of all time as well. And, you know, help these players take their game to that was already great to another level and the details, all the work and right. And, you know, I listen to winning every single day as part of my morning routine. And this is kind of the rationale. Like if I said, hey, I need you to get up every single morning and do XYZ, and they're going to do this, this, and this. And I'm talking to somebody about building wealth, build a routine, read a book, go to the gym, whatever it is. And if I tell them that, you know, they may or may not listen, they may or not be inspired. But like if Michael Jordan was in your ear every single day, and this is the GOAT, if he was in your ear every single day, do you think the odds of, you know, having better success of Jordan talking to you versus me talking to somebody about the same thing? If it was verbatim, word to word, the same message, but Jordan's talking to somebody or it's me and I'm a nobody, who's going to have likelier chances of having a positive impact?
He would probably have a much better chance.
Me,
And
me or
Jordan,
right,
uh,
right, right. Jordan.
because people recognize him, and I guess it can go right along with people in business. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And while they don't personally know Michael Jordan or anything, they're more likely to trust him than just a random person they don't know anything about. And that they're going to receive that message better, I guess you could say. And then they're more likely to implement that into their life.
100%. So like for me personally, that's part of the reason why I listen to winning. Like I'm listening to a reader. Pete Simonelli is the one reading it. So that's like 3 degrees from Jordan, I guess you'd say. However many degrees from Jordan. So Pete Simonelli is reading to me this verbiage in the book, but each chapter opens up with Tim Grover talking about a little bit of each chapter. So like, okay, now each chapter I hear Tim Grover talking to me, which is even closer degrees to Jordan. And it's like my own little weird, crazy way of being able to like trying to almost be inspired by Michael Jordan every single day. And the reason I bring that story up is that if someone happens to be listening to this that's 16 years old, or if you're a parent of a teenager, what better way to be able to learn some of these principles of entrepreneurship and the game of winning in real estate than someone who's already actually doing it at whatever teenage age someone may be like yourself. And so that's why I
Yeah.
think it's so cool that you're out there spending your precious time on a radio show, traveling, giving speeches, because you have an opportunity, the surface area, to be able to have an impact on a lot of people that, for most people, are not thinking that hey, real estate or owning a business, that's an adult thing. That's something that you do when you're older. Why can't somebody do that when they're younger, or at least be exposed to it when they're younger and understand how these things work and how it can help them along the way? So, yeah.
It's there's an old Chinese proverb that goes, "When's the best time to plant a tree?" 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And well, I wasn't born 20 years ago, or I guess it is 20 years ago, or at least this is as close as I can get. So I'm going to do this today.
So very early in this conversation, you mentioned the word what and why, and kind of talking about the real estate journey and the journey of business. And, you know, another part of that is also who, right? Who, not
Mhm.
how, and being around the right people who are already doing it or can inspire and who can help you and guide you, and the mentorship. And that's something that I know, talking to your father, Eric, was important for him and raising the family. How would you kind of explain that journey, being 5 or 7 years old and being in real estate conferences?
Well, my parents have taken me to real estate meetings, not the big conferences at first, but they took me to their weekly breakfast meeting, which eventually became a dinner meeting, for years. And they had taken me there since I was in a baby carrier. And so I really grown up around this. Then when I wanted to start investing, or actually I wanted to get into real estate, my dad said, "All right, well, you need to do two things first. You need to read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and you need to go to the National Real Estate Summit." And I was like, "Okay, that works." And so they just they signed me up and took me there. And I originally started in the youth academy, or as a lot of the adults call it, the kids class. And even if it's for 14 and up, and I was 7 at the time, so maybe I was a little under the minimum age.
Yeah, but your dad tells me, a story about how you're talking to XYZ and bringing up the knowledge in the conversation, and, acting the part, right? Because you've been exposed to
Mm.
it for years. I- Is there a part of you that has visions of anything else beyond, running a business and real estate? Like, what are some of the other things you're passionate about?
Well, not that I know exactly how I'm going to do it, because my life seems to change on a monthly basis, but I know that I am going to significantly impact the world one way or another. I'm going to make it a better place. And I don't know exactly how that's going to happen. But every day I push a little bit closer to that in whatever I'm doing, to, once again, try to make the world better. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, you said not always sure how you're going to be able to do it, right? But you have this belief and a confidence that the actions you're taking are going to have a positive impact. And that's
Hmm.
something that, I was just sharing today on one of my videos that I posted. Like that, I use the kind of the analogy of the eye of the storm. Somebody that's starting out on their journey of a business or a project or whatever they may be, trying to learn something, and like you don't see the fruits of your labor, you don't see the results right away. You're in the eye of the storm, the calm, without seeing the results. And in all reality, there's stuff going on around you that you may not see, these little bitty compounding effects of the work that you're doing. And I personally, myself and people around me, I've seen people, stop, or you don't see the results, so you go in a different direction. It's like, well, if I'd have gone down that path for 6 more months, at some point I would have seen the results and seen some massive successes. And I think that's one of the struggles. There's just so much information out there. Sometimes you don't know which things to be focusing on. And so,
Yeah, ever know what to focus on, and they say hindsight is 2020. And so you never know what's going to go right, what's going to go wrong, what you should have done better before you do it. So sometimes it's just try as many things as possible and figure out what works, do more of that, what seems to be working, what isn't working, and then either see if you can improve it and make it better, or don't worry about it. You can only focus on so many things. It is it's always trying to do something new, something better each day.
so looking at the kind of journey of running these businesses, is there a struggle or a failure or a mistake that stands out that kind of helped shape the next things to come along the way?
Everything I've really done, like everything I do, I try and learn something from and apply that in the future. There isn't necessarily one specific mistake I would point out and say, hey, I did this, I messed this up, and I totally shifted my life to try and do something different. And like, I've made mistakes, but I'm fortunate enough to not have any of them that were so significant it, I guess, ruined my life, bankrupted me, or anything else. A lot of them is just, okay, I need to do better at this. I need to do more of this or less of that. All right, we change that, and then I don't make the same mistake again.
Okay, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on that. So the latest property you purchased, can you give us an example of what that structure was? What was it? Where was it?
The latest property I purchased, I got 4 properties at once. It was 4 houses, and I bought them, got owner financing, and really the only, like, they were, I think 3 of them were rented, but none of them were in that great of shape, which now I'm paying for a little bit because now I gotta find money to go and put more money into these, especially when the people move out and that needs done. And I'm like, okay, I knew this was gonna happen. Now I just have to figure out how to deal with it.
Okay, so you just said something in how many sentences that was. That, I mean, sounds easy. Owner financing, get a deal,
Mm,
acquire some properties, but obviously, you and I both know that there's a lot that goes into that.
mm.
So 4 properties at one time, owner financing. And how would you kind of describe the purchase price versus how much money down versus the amount that the seller was financing, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't remember the exact numbers, but it wasn't much down. The seller was financing pretty much all the purchase price. The prices were fairly reasonable, not outrageously low or outrageously high. I probably got a decent deal on them. If you buy multiple properties at once, you can get what you could call a bulk discount or whatever.
Mhm.
And it was just a landlord was retiring and wanted to sell all his stuff. He didn't want to deal with tenants anymore. And he was like, I want him gone and I'm willing to own or finance. A lot of housing providers that want to sell, they like getting that monthly payment, and perhaps they don't want to pay a massive amount of taxes. And so owner financing works great for them.
Would you say more or less than 10% down?
Less than 10%
Less
down,
than 10%
if I
down.
remember correctly.
Cool. Cool. And then what state?
Ohio, where I
Ohio.
live.
Okay. Okay. So in your backyard, quote unquote, so to speak. Okay. Investing in an area that you know. Okay. So is there a piece of advice that you would give to somebody throughout that journey of finding the property, structuring the deal, et cetera, et cetera?
I guess in that one, a big lesson could be talk to as many people as possible, get to know as many people. There's a great phrase, your network is your net worth. And that's true in a lot of ways. The more people you know, the more people that know you, the easier it is to find deals.
Is there a piece of information in the last, say, 3 or 4 years, information or an experience that opened up your eyes of what's possible as you fast forward the clock with real estate 2, 5, 10 years down the road, or a learning?
I guess one of the biggest things that I guess opened my eyes to how big of possibilities you can make with it is my most creative deal that I've ever done. I talked about in chapter 10 of my first book, If I Can Do It, So Can You. I talked about how I bought 20% of a 60 unit for $20 and also giving up the depreciation, because basically the current owner of it, or at least 2 people had partnered on it, and one of them wanted to essentially sell because he was semi old and wasn't going to actually make much money from the building until after he was too old to reasonably use it, but he did like getting the tax benefits. And I was like, well, how about I can take that over for you and then you get You keep the tax benefits. You don't have any of the risk of the building or anything else. I take that, but you get the thing that you want in the tax benefits. And since I probably have a much lower tax bracket than him, that works great for me.
That's very unique. 20% of a building for $20 and give up the depreciation. Okay. Okay. Because you're looking at it like how many years down the road are you looking at this?
I'm looking at it for the rest of my life. It's all about not even just the rest of my life, but generational wealth. How are my kids going to be able to get this? How much money are they going to make from this even after I'm gone? And it's all about, one, when you're setting up the deal, find out what the other person wants, go out and get it, give it to them at a profit. And then find out how you can make that work for both of you.
Okay.
I guess that kind of goes into that, give it to them at a profit.
Okay. So you mentioned talk to as many people as you can, right? Like I know who you are. I know the background just from, the short dealings I've had with you and your family. I know, how you've gotten there, from afar, right? So when you're calling up a stranger about a piece of property or a property man or whatever the deal is, what's that experience like of talking to somebody about real estate or a deal or structuring something? And here's a 16-year-old on one side and they don't know who you are.
Well, I guess it was probably especially strange when I was starting, but now it's just, I guess, kind of normal for me. Like, okay, we're talking to another person. Let's find out what they want. So, why are you trying to sell such a nice house like this, to use Pete Fortunato's phrase? And just figure out why they're selling. Why do they want to sell this? How you can give that to them. All right, can I make this an owner finance deal? Does subject to fit here? All right, no. What else can I use? How can I make this work best for them?
Okay. I mean, have you had somebody on the phone that's just not understanding why a 16-year-old on the phone talking about sub two and deal structure? I mean, getting through
I
that
think
conversation
most
up front.
people, like, if you're actually in a business deal trying to sell an actual business transaction, pretty much nobody really questions it. Especially like when I go in person, which was when it was the most noticeable. I always wore a suit just like I'm wearing right now. And so they just looked at me kind of as another professional. Or it's, oh, he's cute. Wait, he's the one that's actually buying the property? Okay, you know what? Oh, listen, let's see what he has to say. And then when I'm on the phone, I just talk professionally. And I guess another thing that helps me is frequently when I'm on the phone, people assume I'm a girl and I'm guessing significantly older than I am.
Fair enough.
Or just people in person now tend to think I'm 18, 20, 21 years old when I'm only 16, which is an interesting experience.
What are some of the books or people you follow that give you just extra context and either inspiration or information? What are some of the people you follow?
There are a lot of great people out there on my family's website, realpowerfamily.com. We have a large list of different books that we've read and really liked. Some of them that I really liked are Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I mentioned earlier. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill was also great. And then people that we follow, we listen to a bunch of different podcasts from different people on different topics. Like when we're driving, it's frequently a lot of, okay, let's listen to a podcast, not let's listen to music. And some of the podcasts that we listen to are the Rich Dad Radio Show from Robert Kiyosaki. We listen to a lot of stuff from him. Occasionally, we also listen to George Gammon. He has a good show. Ron Paul, he talks a lot about government. These are just different people that we regularly listen to. And then we also listen to our own Real Power Family radio show sometimes. For us, it's to see, hey, let's change this, let's do this better. It would work better if we change the order of things to this. Or hey, Devin, you need to speak a little bit more clearly in this circumstance.
So you mentioned, the latest building is in Ohio. Is there a certain area that at some point down the road you want to be able to invest in for various reasons? Southeast,
Really,
West
what I
Coast.
look for is where can I make the most money? For where can I make the most money for the least amount of work, I guess. And right around where I live is pretty much, it works pretty well for that. We have I know a good management company, and really one of the most difficult parts of investing in other places would be I have to find a good management company. And so we've looked at buying property in a couple of other states. And some places it's a lot more difficult to find good deals. It doesn't mean it's impossible, it's just far more difficult. And other places, yeah, maybe we could do stuff there, but how much government stuff are we willing to deal with? So it all depends on what you're looking for other people.
So, the book, the radio show, the real estate, when you put this all together, and you fast forward the clock 5 years, 10 years, and you mentioned before, impacting and helping people, right, in a positive way. Do you have a vision of what this could look like in 5, 10 years?
I'm not entirely sure where it's going to end up, but probably, I don't know, my best guess would just be massively bigger in all areas. Like we have like 2 million listeners on our radio show now. So in 5 years, maybe we'll have 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. Who knows? It could really go any number of ways. Heck, 3 months ago, I never would have expected that we would have had a radio show.
So timeline wise, you said 3 months ago, right? So already over a million, 2 million listeners in just what, 2, 3 months?
Pretty much.
That's
And
that's awesome. And
yeah,
where can they find the show?
there's a link to the past episodes on our website, realpowerfamily.com.
Okay. Okay. So what would be kind of an example of something that a listener would find when they check out the show?
We talk about a whole bunch of different things. A lot of it is all based around family, financial freedom, time freedom, and location freedom. And then some, I think about half the shows we bring on a guest to talk about whatever they do. And so one of the shows we had a pilot on, and he talked about what it's like being a commercial pilot and what happens there. One of we talk about what is real education. Another one we talk about how to teach your kids more effectively. One of them, it was just my brother and we talk about how to get your kids interested in business or investing. It's a bunch of different things so that there's one, kind of something for everybody. Two, neither us nor our listeners get bored. And three, so that we can all learn a bunch of different things.
That's awesome. That's all. Yeah. I mean, I think if I'm a parent, I have 2 boys that are 4 years old. So this is, not right now, not something that they're going to think about. But if I had a teenager and, they really weren't in that kind of spirit of thinking about entrepreneurship and investing and things like that, I would want to check out the show,
Yeah. Well,
and learn about it.
even more than the teenagers, you mentioned you had a couple of kids. I think you said 2, 3, 4 years old.
4 years old. Yep. 2 boys.
And well, one of our shows talks about just my brother and I when we were a lot younger. My brother is a very kinesthetic or movement based learner. He needs to move while learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a lot different than the normal. And so we had to learn how to adjust to that. So even it's great for anybody that has a family of any kind, kids, no kids, teens, any of it.
Okay. So which episode number would that one be specifically?
I would have to look that up. Would you like
Number
me to
15, how do you get your family interested in your business, or a different one?
that is
Inspiring and teaching your
perhaps in another
family.
year or two. Give me a second.
Putting you on the spot. My apologies.
You're fine. It might be the one couple back that's inspiring and teaching your family, I think it is.
Yep. Okay. See, that's in episode 13. Okay.
I'm not 100% sure of that. I don't remember exactly what we talked about in each show, but it was that or possibly the pretty recent one that's what is education. I don't remember. We've done quite a few of these, so I don't remember what happens in every one of them perfectly. Or, hey, is this in that show or the one over there? Either way.
That's awesome. Okay. So I've seen you guys on Instagram, and again, Real Power Family, right? And you guys are
Yep.
in your own plane. You can fly wherever you want to go. If you want to get dinner at whatever place in Annapolis, Maryland, you can do that, right? So is there somebody out there, and the life that you guys are building right now, is there somebody that gets you pumped up to meet? Is there somebody, an investor or a business owner or somebody that you would love to be able to meet down the road?
I guess one entire family that someday I would like to talk to or maybe meet, like the Cardone family. They're similar to us in a couple ways. They do a lot more in real estate, and they don't teach as much or focus or seem to focus as much, at least on their social medias, about family. But they still seem to have a very strong family and are also very successful in business. So talking to them and seeing how they do some of that compared to how we do some of that would be very interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, who knows? Literally anything's possible. Put the work
Yeah.
in, put it out there. You just never know. You know, we don't have a whole lot of time left. Is there any other advice that you would give to somebody, anybody, literally anybody? I mean, it could be, and that's the whole point of this is like, you could be 16 years old, you could be 66 years old. Like, doesn't matter what happened in the past. Can't change it, but you can certainly change the future and how you do things. But what advice would you give to somebody?
The advice I give to pretty much everyone is be creative and take action. If you try to do the same thing as everyone else, you're probably going to get the same result. And then take action, because if you don't actually use any of the info that you're learning here, then nothing's going to happen.
I mean, that's so true. That's implementation, action.
Mhm.
So, how do you hold yourself accountable? Do you have other people that help to hold you accountable, support systems? How does that work for you personally?
For me, part of it is I just have to constantly be on myself. Hey, do we have this done? Are we moving? If so, great. If not, why not? Where do we need to go? What do we need to do? Constantly pushing on myself to move forward. And then also, like, just anytime I learn something new, all right, let's write this down and say I'm buying a course at an event or something. And I never buy another course until I implement the stuff I learned in the first one.
Ooh, okay. I like that. I like that. Okay, so not to put you on the spot, but what's the last one that you did get into, and what's the topic or action that you were able to implement from the last thing you acquired?
So I haven't actually bought that many courses, but two of the biggest ones that I bought, the first real one was one about writing a book, and that's actually how I wrote my first book. If I can do it, so can you. And then the most recent one was Marshall Silver. He has a course on hypnosis and mindset and sales and what seems like a dozen other things. The main part of that was a big event, and the event hasn't happened yet, so I'll have to get back to you on that.
That's awesome. But inherent in that is what you're saying is it's okay to take a chance, spend some money, and just don't stop until you put the work in and implement. And sometimes things work out where maybe that may
Mhm.
have been the wrong decision to make, to spend money on a course or coaching or this or that or a book or whatnot. That stuff happens, but put the work in and just don't stop until you get there.
Yeah, it's not everything is going to work out perfectly. It's not perfect out there. That being said, there are always things that you can learn, improve, and then just do slightly better next time, or shoot for perfect. And then even if you fail miserably, you'll still be doing great.
All right. I got to ask you this. So, your brother is how old again?
He's 13 years old.
So 13. Okay. And from a standpoint of like environment and people in your circles, this is a question that I ask people, many times, the idea of, hey, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? You know, people that I've had on the show that are doing amazing things, having a positive impact on the world around them, hey, are people around you that may otherwise not even think that it's possible or even going down this path of entrepreneurship or real estate, are they seeing what you're doing? They think, oh, if he can do it, I can do it. Or you're seeing people around you maybe rub off.
Yeah, there are multiple people. Like my brother was probably the first. He, after watching my parents investing and me get started, he also got started investing in real estate at 7 years old. He also wrote a book. Although he was a little bit of a slacker, he waited until he was 12 or 13 to do it.
Fair enough.
And it's not a competition, but I'm totally beating him. We're only a little bit competitive. But anyway, there are there are also multiple other people that were inspired to get started investing or keep investing or anything else because they saw my brother or I. And some of them were like teenagers that got started investing, and some of them were a lot older, and they're just like, hey, if these kids can do it, so can I.
So you're saying other teenagers around you and maybe even people a little older saw you're the example that you guys were setting and doing and putting in the work and the action and like, okay, let's do
Yeah,
this.
some people have. A lot of people don't. It's just you teach a course to 100 people or 1,000 people, and most of them don't use it. But a couple of them will. It's just a matter of you have to get out there to enough people so that you can help the people that will use it. And I mean, if more people took action, then more people would get all the benefits from all this. It's one of the reasons I teach so much about take action. You're buying books for self-help, not just to put on your shelf for shelf help.
Self-help. Okay. Speaking of teaching and inspiring, I know you guys have been in different parts of the country doing presentations and demonstrating and talking. What are some of the places that you've been to and what types of groups have you guys been able to meet at, get in front of?
We have been to a bunch of different, like, are you referring to like different groups of people, different conferences, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So we've been to a lot of different real estate groups or real estate investors associations, or they call them RIAs. And we've spoken at, I don't know, I think over a dozen different of those. We've spoken, my brother and I was around 2 weeks ago. We spoke at the National Real Estate Summit that I mentioned earlier in the show. And that's by OREA. Yeah, that was cool. My family also has spoken to a few other groups. I was on the Limitless Expo. I was at the first Limitless Expo speaking, actually on single family homes.
So speaking of single family homes, I think I was watching a video with Brandon Turner and maybe Ryan Pineda talking about like the game changing and, real estate doesn't work anymore. That's that, I mean, there's probably some validity in that, but that's kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, wouldn't you say?
Well, real estate is not what it was 5 years ago. It's not the same. It never is the same. Real estate, just like everything in life, is constantly changing. And so you have to find a way to adapt with it. So before, maybe you could go to a realtor and then you could get a deal that you could easily buy, finance, and make money with. Now, that's just not where you go. You have to find a different place to buy deals. It's not like it's impossible. You just have to find the right place to do it.
So true. Don't want to give away all your secrets.
No, I'm happy to give away all of my secrets.
I mean, we could be going on here, we're talking for hours about this stuff. And like the thing that gets me pumped up. So like, I got to be honest with this. Okay. So I want to go on a little bit of a rant. You okay with that?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm in mortgage. I see so much good, the bad, the indifferent financial situations. People that are buying primary residences, people that are doing investing, people that need credit building. I have my own real estate stuff. I've got a podcast. I'm into all these different things. And my content, it's kind of been all over the place with different topics, right? And I just kind of got to the point where like I feel like I figured out what gets me really pumped up. And it's something today is November 17th. So I'm on day 3 of my kind of little plan where I'm going to be specifically talking about Gen Z retiring early. That's the topic that I'm going to be talking about 30 days in a row and just staying on point on topic. And the reason I get pumped up about it is because prices have definitely gone up in the last however many years since 2009, since the crash. Rates are obviously way higher, and the level of affordability, the gap, to get in the game, the hurdles you have to overcome to be able to get into real estate, it's higher than it ever has been before with prices and rates going up. And so you have this demographic where the average age of a first-time home buyer 4 years ago was 28, and now it's 36. And my real estate journey started at 27, 20, I forget what it was. But like I look back on the last 14 years after I bought my first property in 09, and the things that I've been able to do along the way, multifamilies, commercial property, short-term rental. Now I'm doing a land development deal. I wouldn't have been able to do any of those things along the way without the previous one.
Mm-hmm.
And if the average age of a first-time home buyer is 36, that's, later on in someone's journey. If somebody can get into the game at 25 with all the same circumstances, they're going to have a massive head start on the rest, on the average. That's 10 years ahead of somebody.
Here's some crazy things I'm seeing. One, you said the average home buyer is 36. Here's some fun facts. The average millionaire, I think, is 56. And the average billionaire was the number something in the 60s, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
And I didn't verify those numbers, but that's what I heard from someone. And which seems a bit, wow, people are doing it at that. People are going for most of their life and then doing that, or I guess maybe not most of their life, but a lot of their life. And then for Gen Z, we're living in a much different world. A lot of people are told, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, work for 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. And maybe that worked generations ago. And you could have one person that goes and gets a job, and that could support an entire family. Now we have people where it's 2 people working full-time jobs, and it's barely enough to have an okay life. And not like a whole lot of fun time or fun money, just enough to make it by. And so we are not in the same place that we were before. So we have to do different things. Starting businesses is becoming more and more popular, especially among Gen Z.
Okay.
And
100% on that plane. Starting businesses, increasing income, but cutting and budgeting is not going to be enough. Increasing income is. So Gen Z starting a business. What are you seeing people, whether you know or not, what are you seeing people do at an earlier age getting into in terms of niches or industries or businesses? What are you seeing out there, people doing?
A lot of people are doing all sorts of different things these days. There's plenty of like flippers and traders, not necessarily in real estate, but in all different markets, whatever they happen to be working in. People I heard earlier today about, I think he's like 20 years old or something, late teens or early 20s. And like one of his favorite, they call it side hustles, is flipping iPhones. Plenty of people trade stocks or cryptocurrency, and some of them make money that way.
Okay. Any other people come to mind? Flipping iPhones.
Not
Crypto.
immediately coming to mind, although there are plenty of people doing plenty of different things.
Go on Instagram, go on Twitter, go on TikTok. There's people selling a course, selling a guide. I mean, there's a million different things to do. Like I was just sharing this earlier today. Like I can't tell you how many times I get DM'd, hey, you're putting out content, it's great, but like, hey, I'll do 4 3 videos for you for free, give you some fire content with new, better, images or, emojis and texts, like copywriting, people doing ads for people. Like there's just a million different ways that people are building businesses and agencies on the side.
Yeah, a
that
lot
are-
of people are doing or like, hey, let me edit your content and pay me $5 per 60-second video, and
Mhm.
I'll do that for you. Or sometimes they're significantly more. And granted, I've used between me and my parents, we've used 3, maybe 4 of them, and haven't gotten any success with any of them. Tend to get less views that way, but
Oh, wow.
still, some people are doing that.
I mean, is
And
that a
that's
side
one
business
business
that you start? I mean, do you know somebody that's really good at it that you can help them leverage and grow a business?
not offhand. There are people out there that are great at that and know a lot about it. Frankly, I have an app that does most of the editing for me. Plenty of it uses AI, you had mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And come up with an idea. I make the script myself. I record the video all myself. And then I put it into the app. It adds the captions, and then I can tweak it to whatever I want. But that has gotten me pretty much the most success out of anything.
That's awesome. Okay. Last thing. We talked about, visions of stuff for 5-10 years down the road. Are there any deals you're working on right now?
I am working on at least one deal. I have a handshake agreement on, although we haven't technically gotten it under contract, to buy another house. Nothing super exciting, but it's another house to buy.
What kind of cash flow does that end up being? Just ballpark. What are you looking at? What's a win for you?
That one is probably going to have nothing significant for cash flow until it's paid off. It'll just be another one that I have, and then in another 10, 15 years, it'll be paid off and I'll be making a few $100s a month. After all the expenses are paid and everything's done, I'll be making a few $100s a month from that. And that isn't too much for one, but do that 10 times and you make a little bit. Do that 50 times and you have a decent life. Do that 100 times, you have a pretty comfortable life. Do that 500 times and you can have a pretty nice airplane. Do that 1,000 times and you might be able to get yourself a jet.
Okay. 1,000 times. But
Probably less.
you can't get there. You like the deal you're talking about, if it doesn't cash flow day one, the majority of people are going to walk away from it because of
people are
the
so
mindset out
focused
there.
on right now that they forget about the future. Something my family, or at least my dad, talks about to people is a lot of people get 30-year loans because you get more cash flow right now. And I look at this and like, sure, you can make another $50 a month right now, but you're paying on that mortgage for 10 more years or 15 more years. That is a crazy, like, that doesn't work in my head. That math isn't there. I would rather get a little bit less now and a lot more later.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Definitely appreciate you coming on board here and spending some time with us. Just amazing stuff. Can't wait to see more of what's got to come with the show and on Instagram. Real Power. What's it again?
Real Power Family. That's
On
our
all platforms.
Instagram. It's Real Power Family. Website, Real Power Family, on pretty much all the other social medias, including YouTube. And yeah.
Cool.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Cool. Yeah. Can't wait to have you on down the road again. See more stuff happen for you and the family. And we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Devin.